My name is Anita Lee, and I'm the Chief Programming Officer here at TIFF. It's my absolute pleasure to present today's In Conversation with actor-director Lee Jung-jae and Jung Woo-sung. The In Conversation series is a highlight of TIFF. Thus far this year, we have presented Taylor Swift, Viola Davis and Gina Prince Bythewood, Eddie Redmayne, Damien Chazelle, and today's conversation with Lee Jung-jae and Jung Woo-sung is the final conversation in our series. Before we begin our program, as you join us today, we encourage you to reflect on the land that you are on and its history. We are located on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee. The territory is within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon, One Belt Covenant, and is home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We are very grateful to work on this land. We would like to thank our members, donors, and supporters for championing TIFF's mission to transform the way we see the world through film. For details, visit tiff.net/support. A very sincere thank you to our lead and major sponsors, Bell, RBC, Bulgari, and Visa, as well as to our major supporters, the Government of Canada, the Government of Ontario, Telefilm Canada, and the City of Toronto for their continued support. And a big hello to our audiences tuning in from around the world on the live stream, thanks to our partners at Twitter. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce you to our host for today's conversation. Michelle Cho is Assistant Professor of East Asian Popular Cultures and Cinema Studies at the University of Toronto. Her research and teaching areas are South Korean film and popular culture, transnational fandom, platforms, and global media. Her published scholarship explores South Korean genre cinemas in the new millennium, the history of the Korean new wave, and K-pop's multi-sided fandoms. She frequently contributes commentary on Korean film and media and popular culture to CBC Radio's Q, Tapestry, Day 6, NPR's All Things Considered, Bloomberg, Al Jazeera, and The Washington Post. Please welcome Michelle Cho.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Nita. Wow, okay, this is really, really exciting. I can't tell you how thrilled and how nervous I am to be here. But anyways, welcome everyone to this really extra special session in conversation with Lee Jung-jae and Jung Woo-sung. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I'm just super lucky that I get to be the moderator for the conversation. So yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for being patient. We're really fortunate to be able to gather here in person after the last couple of years of virtual events. And so I'm thrilled to be able to start us off with an introduction of our two very special guests. Lee Jung-jae and Jung Woo-sung are here at TIFF not only as A-list movie stars, but also as filmmakers. Director Lee's film Hunt, in which he also stars alongside director Jung, had its North American premiere last night. And director Jung also debuted his first feature, A Man of Reason, at this year's festival. So directors Jung and Lee both began their careers in the 1990s, emerging as youth culture icons through their film and television work. And throughout their long, multifaceted careers, they've starred in some of South Korea's most commercially successful and critically acclaimed film and television projects. These include Jung Woo-sung's breakout appearance in Beat in 1997, which was directed by Kim Sung-soo, who would go on to direct him in 3 subsequent films, City of the Rising Sun, or 태양은 없다, from 1999, Musa the Warrior in 2001, and Asura, the City of Madness, from 2016. Jung has thrilled audiences with unforgettable performances in Kim Ji-yoon's blockbuster The Good, the Bad, the Weird, romantic dramas like A Moment to Remember, and numerous action hits like Cold Eyes and the Steel Rain series. In 2019, Chung swept Best Actor accolades at both the Paeksang Art Awards and the Blue Dragon Film Awards for the legal drama Innocent Witness. And Chung is also a noted humanitarian, appointed in 2015 by the UN High Commissioner for Refugees Korea as its first celebrity goodwill ambassador. Lee Jung-jae has appeared, we can applaud that for sure, yeah. So Lee Jung-jae has appeared in works ranging from the groundbreaking Korean television series Moreshige or Sandglass from 1995 to Korean action blockbusters like Typhoon, Thieves, and Assassination. In 2010, he appeared in Im Sang-soo's art house remake of the classic film The Housemaid. And of course, his performance in the Netflix series Squid Game in 2021 garnered him international acting awards with the Screen Actors Guild, Critics' Choice, and most recently, the Emmys, all recognizing his excellence. I mean, how lucky are we that we get to hear from him the very week that he won the Emmy for Best Actor in a Drama Series. I mean, Toronto is amazing, TIFF is amazing. So I could keep gushing, I could keep going about these two men and their incredible achievements and impact in the worlds of South Korean cinema and global media, but I'm pretty sure you're not here to see me do that. So please welcome our guests, Lee Jung-jae and Chung Woo-sung. Wow. So, this is on. So we really have some time to engage in a kind of wide-ranging conversation today. So I'm going to start us off actually in the early years. And so I just want to ask you a question about your relationship to each other. Your fans and the Korean media have called you the Cheongdam-dong bubu, or Cheongdam-dong couple. Can you tell us a bit about your relationship? When did you first meet? And what were your first impressions of each other?
처음에 만나서 프로포즈해서 결혼을 해서 청담 부부가 된 거죠.
When we first met, I proposed and we became Cheongdam couple since then.
그 태양은 없다라는 영화를 촬영하게 되면서 이제 본격적으로 만나게 됐고요. 함께 작업을 하면서 이제 서로를 이렇게 긴 시간 동안 볼 수 있는 그런 계기가 됐죠.
When we were filming City of the Rising Sun, that's when we first met and worked with each other for a long time.
근데 그 전에 그 저희가 우연히 그 한 방송국에서 신인상을 같이 받는 일이 있었어요.
Before that, we coincidentally received the Best Actor, a New Actor Award from a broadcasting station.
근데 그게 이상하잖아요. 상은 한 명한테 가야 되는데 둘한테 주니까.
And that's strange, right? Because the Best New Actor Award should go to one person, not two.
그래서 둘이 그 시상식 단상에서 굉장히 어색하게 인사를 하고, 근데 서로에게 대한 호감은 충분히 있었고요.
So at the award ceremony, we met and we had awkward greetings with each other, but we did have feelings for each other from then.
그리고 이제 태양은 없다를 촬영하면서 이제 친해지게 됐죠.
And we became good friends while we were filming for City of the Rising Sun.
생각이 다를 수도 있어요.
Well, he may have a different idea about this.
기억은 똑같은데 감정이 다르네요.
So we have the same memories, but perhaps our feelings are a bit different about it.
맞습니다. 그 우성 씨랑 처음 만났을 때가 바로 그 순간이었고요.
So when we first met, it was when we first met at the awards ceremony for the Best New Actor Award.
그 나이 때 영화를 보고서 친구들이랑 그 영화 얘기를 하는 것을 저는 꽤 좋아했었어요.
At the time, I would gather with my friends and talk about cinema.
그런데 이제 보면은 이제 같이 영화를 하는 배우다 하더라도 영화 얘기 짧게 하고 이제 또 다른 얘기를 이제 다른 주제로 이제 뭐 여자 얘기, 뭐 사는 얘기, 뭐 이런 거로 바로 넘어가고 싶어하는 친구들이 있었는데
So at the time, we would start our conversations about specific films, but quickly there were some people in that group who would want to digress quickly to other topics, such as interest in women that they were seeing, or just their day-to-day life.
그런데 우성 씨는 하루 종일 영화 얘기를 할 수 있더라고요.
But Woo-sung was different in that he and I were able to talk about cinema the whole day.
그래서 영화 얘기를 굉장히 제일 많이 오래 하는 그 영화 배우 친구였어요.
So he became quickly a friend with whom I could talk about cinema the most and the longest.
그러다 보니까 이제 더 친하게 더 오래 지금까지 같이 청담 부부라는 소리까지 들으면서 함께 일을 하고 있는 것 같습니다.
And that's been the basis of our long-time friendship that lasts until today.
Great, thank you. So, if I could ask you, both of you started out in Korean film and entertainment in the 1990s. This was leading into and then after the IMF crisis. What was the Korean entertainment industry like when you started? And did you realize that you would become these icons of the Shinsedae or the new youth generation?
그 저희는 93년도에 데뷔를 했었는데 93년도에는 영화 시장이 굉장히 좋았어요. 왜냐하면 그때 자본들도 이제 새로운 자본도 이제 영화계 쪽으로 막 들어오고 해서 굉장히 저희가 시작할 때에는 참 분위기가 좋았었죠.
So we made our debut in the year 1993, and that was when the industry was in good shape because new capital was entering the industry, and so there were a lot of opportunities for us.
그런데 그 IMF가 96년, 97년도에 아마 일어났던 걸로 97년, 98년. 예.
Yes, and the IMF crisis, if I remember correctly, was in the year 97 or 98.
그래서 그때 영화계에 들어왔었던 그 금융 자본들이 순식간에 다 빠져나가면서 영화계도 꽤 어려웠었죠.
And all the new capital that had entered the industry suddenly vanished, and the industry was really struggling.
그런데 한국이 굉장히 열심히 그 IMF에서 금방 빠져나오게 되어서 그럼과 동시에 한국 영화도 갑자기 더 좋아지게 되는 또 순간을 또 저희는 또 경험을 하게 됐죠.
But then again, Korea quickly recovered from that IMF crisis, as well as the cinema industry. It also quickly recovered, and we saw new films coming out.
그래서 그게 90년도 10년이고요. 그 다음에 2000년도 10년, 2010년도 10년, 지금 2020년인데 그 10년 단위로 굉장히 그 업앤다운이 심한 요동치는 영화계의 현장을 저희 둘이서 함께 몸으로 뭐 느끼면서 일을 해왔다라고 볼 수 있습니다.
And so every decade, there's been quite a bit of up and down in the 90s, in the 2000s, the 2010s, and now in the 2020s. As we've worked for all these years, we were able to kind of experience these changes viscerally by being on set.
우리가 그렇게 오래 일했나?
Wow, have we worked that long?
Yes.
No.
But you don't look like it. No.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you.
So the roles that you played in Taeyangan Opta, in City of the Rising Sun, they're character types that actually you came back to in your later work. For instance, Director Lee, you play a warm-hearted but untrustworthy gambling addict, similar to your role as Hung Kyun in Squid Game. And Director Chung, you play a kind of strong and silent fighter, yes, with a mysterious aura, and who prefers speaking with actions instead of words. It's similar to Chol-soo in Steel Rain. So how similar are you to these characters? How are you different?
서로에 대해서 얘기할까요?
Should we speak about each other?
Yeah. We could have them comment on the others. Yeah.
우성 씨는 과묵한 모습으로 보이지만은 굉장히 장난기도 많고, 그리고 또 언제나 현장에서 스태프들과 배우분들에게 즐거운 현장이고 기억으로 남고 싶어서 굉장히 작은 유머들을 이제 끊임없이 이제 공유하는 그런 굉장히 마음이 따뜻한 그런 사람이에요. 그래서 현장에서 정우성 씨를 보는 것과 스크린에서 정우성 씨를 보는 것의 차이를 저희는 많이 느끼고 있죠.
So even though at first he seems like a taciturn person, actually on set, to the staff and the fellow actors, he wants to make sure that the filming process is a fun one, a fun memory for them all. And so throughout the filming process, he would crack jokes to kind of lighten up the mood. And so that kind of warm-hearted consideration on his part, I think, makes the difference between him on set and him on screen very different.
정재 씨는 그냥 성기훈이에요.
Director Jung is actually very much like Song Gi-hoon in Squid Game.
그렇지 않고요.
No, that's actually not true.
가장 제가 이제 늘 오랫동안 지켜보면서 가장 어떻게 보면은 그 캐릭터를 디자인하면서 그 영화마다 이렇게 옮겨갈 때 그 스스로를 성장시키고, 그리고 그 캐릭터 디자인의 머리끝부터 발끝까지 이렇게 디테일하게 고민하는 동료이고, 그리고 그 모습을 늘 지켜보면서도 또 좋은 영향을 받고, 그렇게 제 옆에서 저를 성장시킨 아내?
So while I was working with him for many years, I've seen him embody different characters in each of the different films, and he would reflect so deeply with details what kind of character he would become, and I've learned a lot from him, and I had a great influence from him. So he's like my wife.
Thank you. I feel like we're learning a lot from what you're sharing. We're going to move into the 21st century now. So we talked about the 90s, and thank you for Director Lee for so helpfully kind of dividing up the progress of the Korean film industry in these decades. But we're going to actually watch some clips together now. So we have, yay, we have a couple of clips from, I think, the period that really marks the rise of international popularity of Korean genre films in the 2000s. There were so many groundbreaking works and big critical and audience hits, from drama and romance to thriller and action films. And you both had key roles in many of those films. So first we're going to see director Chung's incredible physical acting on horseback as the good Chonnom in Kim Ji-yoon's 2008 kimchi western, The Good, the Bad, the Weird. And then we're going to see director Lee verbally spar with the great Choi Min-sik in the gangster noir film New World or Shinsegae from 2013. Thank you. So both of these examples come from genre films, and South Korea has made some of the greatest genre works of the 21st century. So what are some of your favorite genres to work in, and why?
저는 어렸을 때 굉장히 재밌게 그리고 지금까지도 오래 기억에 남는 영화가 하우스 오브 스프릿이라는 영화하고 로버트 드니로 나온 그 미션이라는 영화 그 두 작품을 어렸을 때 보고서 와 정말 멋있는 영화구나라는 생각을 했고 역시 지금도 역시 마찬가지여서 가끔 보고 싶을 때마다 이렇게 찾아서 이제 보게 됩니다.
So there are two films that I would like to introduce. These two films I've seen from my childhood, and I still enjoy them today. The first of the two is called House of Spirit, and the second one is called Mission.
So like a horror genre and then a gangster?
그러니까 그 두 영화가 모두 다 이제 드라마다 보니까 그런 지금도 그런 드라마 장르를 제일 좋아하는 것 같아요.
I consider both of them within the drama genre, and so I think that's the genre that I most enjoy watching.
저는 그 넉넉하지 않은 집안에서 이렇게 자라다 보니까 그 유일하게 내가 할 수 있는 게 적은 돈으로 큰 재미를 느낄 수 있는 게 영화를 보는 일이었어요.
I didn't grow up in an affluent household, so what I could do most with little money was to watch the movies.
그래서 이렇게 혼자 가서 극장에서 이렇게 영화 보는 시간이 저에게는 어떻게 보면 현실을 도피할 수 있는 유일한 방법이었던 것 같아요.
So when I went to the theaters alone and watched movie, that was a time that I can escape from reality.
그래서 볼 수 있는 모든 영화들은 다 본 것 같아요.
So I watched any film that I could watch.
그래서 모든 장르를 다 좋아해요.
So I like films of all genres,
공포만 빼고요.
except horror.
저 어렸을 때 한 12살인가 13살 정도 됐던 것 같은데 13살 때 저희 동네에서 500원이면은 영화 두 편을 보여줬거든요.
동시상영.
네. 그런데 그때 제가 보러 간 이유가 고스트 바스터즈를 하고 있어서 그 영화를 보러 갔는데 그 영화가 끝나면은 다른 영화를 이제 두 편을 한다고 그랬으니까 다른 영화를 하는데 그게 소피스 초이스였어요. 그런데 고스트버스터즈를 보러 갔는데 소피스 초이스가 너무 좋은 거예요. 그래서 그 어린 나이에 왜 그게 좋았는지 지금 잘 이해가 안 되지만은 역시 그런 장르를 좋아하는 것 같아요.
So when I was 12 or 13 years old, in my neighborhood, there would be a program at the local theater of a double bill screening. So, and the ticket was only 500 won. So it was really cheap for the cost of two films. And on one day, I went to go watch Ghostbusters. But the second film scheduled for that double bill was Sophie's Choice. And I actually ended up liking Sophie's Choice much more than what I had intended, what I had gone to the theaters for.
제가 지금 생각을 다시 해보니까요. 그 동시 상영관에서 늘 이렇게 한 편은 전체 관람가를 할 수 있는 영화가 보여지고 그게 끝나면 이제 성인물이 켜지는 거예요. 그 미성년자는 관람할 수 없는 거죠.
Now that I think about it, when I went to see these double bill films in the theater, one of these films would be for all ages, and the second one would be only for adults, not for teenagers and children.
극장에 빠진 이유는 그 두 번째 영화였던 것 같네요.
I think I got into the film and the theaters because of the second film.
Amazing. This is like the film education that you received in your youth, I see. So Hallyu, or the Korean wave, it began in Asia, and then the Korean entertainment industry has been quite dominant across the Asian region for at least 10 years. Can you recall the moment when you realized that you were a Hallyu star as well as being a Korean star? And as Hallyu gains more popularity, what does that mean now as Korean talent gains recognition, not just in Asia, but in Hollywood and beyond? And congratulations for your Emmy.
저는 우성 씨 아까 그 놈놈놈 그 영화를 칸느 영화제에서 누가 보고서 전화가 왔어요. 야, 너 친구 우성 씨가 찍은 그 놈놈놈 여기 칸느에서 상영을 했는데 사람들이 엄청 좋아하고 엄청 웃고 엄청 재밌게 봤어. 그래서 서양 사람들이 한국 영화를 보고서 이렇게 좋아했었던 적은 없는 것 같아 라는 얘기를 제가 들은 기억이 있습니다.
So when my friend Chung Woo-sung, when his film The Good, the Bad, the Weird came out in was screening at Cannes, there was a phone call from someone who attended the Cannes screening to me saying that, you know, your friend in the good, the bad, the weird, there was a screening and people were laughing, people loved the film. Did you know about this? He had no idea. I had no idea that Western audience would enjoy Korean film.
이게 13년 전, 14년 전 일이었는데 그 전까지만 하더라도 한국 영화는 굉장히 전통적이고 한국의 문화를 알리는 그런 영화들이 해외에서 인기가 있었는데 그 놈놈놈을 외국 분들이 보시고 굉장히 엔터테이닝적으로 즐겁게 보셨다라는 얘기를 듣고서 조금 놀랐습니다. 그리고 그 이후에 이제 한국에서 개봉할 때 봤을 때 왜 세계인들이 이렇게 재밌게 보셨는지 이제 알겠다라고 생각하면서 이제 한국 영화가 세계인들과 재미있는 즐거운 오락 영화로 만날 수 있는 그런 기회가 이제 막 생기겠구나라는 생각을 그때 하게 됐습니다.
So that Cannes screening was about 13 or 14 years ago, and at the time, all the previous Korean films that had been released or known outside were more focused on kind of publicizing the traditional Korean culture, the Korean traditional history, and The Good, the Bad, the Weird. That film kind of changed that dynamic by providing good entertainment to the audience. And so when the film came out in the theaters in Korea, I went and watched it, and I understood at that moment that Korean cinema was now entering a new phase where it could provide entertainment with the global audience.
놈놈놈이 넷플릭스에서 방송됐어야 됐어 그때.
The Good, the Bad, and the Weird should have been broadcasted through Netflix.
농담이고요.
I was just kidding.
저는 2000년대 초에 중국에서 영화를 찍을 일이 있어서 진짜 중국에서 촬영을 중국의 여러 지방을 찾아다니면서 촬영을 할 기회가 있었어요.
In early 2000, I had the opportunity to do a film shoot in China, going around different regions of China.
그때 그 중국의 저희 한국 음악과 그리고 한국 드라마, 한국 영화들이 엄청나게 퍼져 있더라고요.
At that time, I saw that in China, there were a lot of popularity of Korean music, Korean cinema, and Korean drama.
그러면서 우리의 것이 이렇게 이제 또 옆에 나라에 어떤 영향을 끼칠 수 있구나라는 것을 확인했죠.
That's when I realized that something that is ours could also affect our neighbors as well.
그러면서 서서히 일본에서 이제 한류라는 그게 시작이 됐죠.
And then slowly, the Korean wave started in Japan.
그 이제 그 일본에서 이제 그 한국 그 문화를 좋아했던 이유는 아마 그 일본의 옛 추억을 돌려볼 수 있는 그런 이유에서 좋아했었던 것 같아요.
I think the reason that Korean culture is popular in Japan is because it's nostalgic for Japanese.
그런 영향으로 이제 저희 영상 산업이 어떤 자본적 영향 그 여유가 생기면서 더 큰 어떤 투자와 더 활발한 어떤 과감한 시도들이 있었던 것 같아요.
And with that, with different capital entering into the film industry and a lot of passion going into that.
그러면서 서서히 또 그 동남아시아 쪽 다른 나라에도 영향을 끼치게 됐고요.
And then it spread to different countries in Southeast Asia.
그리고 이제 그때는 또 인터넷이 없으니까 이게 서서히 퍼져가더라고요.
And at the time, there was no internet, so the pace of its spread was quite slow.
그런 그 속도감이 현재의 지금 이제 한국 영상 산업의 발전과 맞붙으면서 어떤 지역에서는 그게 식지 않고 계속해서 유지가 되는 어떤 그런 그 롱텀의 어떤 인기를 가질 수 있는 또 그런 영향이 있었던 것 같고요.
And that slow pace now met with the current Korean film industry, and now it's having a long-term impact.
I have a funny story, which is that I saw Nom 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 3 times in the theater in South Korea in 2008. And I decided to write a dissertation about Korean cinema after I watched that film. So, yeah, it had that big of an impact on me. Yeah, so now that Hallyu is spreading to other directions, beyond Asia, does that change how you think about what who your audience is, or what, where you are directing your attention as either filmmakers or performers?
전에는 좀 구분을 지어야지 된다라고 생각했고요.
Before, I used to think that there should be a distinction.
그런데 지금은 워낙에 이 소셜 미디어가 발달을 하다 보니까 지금 사진 한 장 올린 것이 전 세계에 있는 사람들이 함께 동시에 볼 수 있는 이런 시대에 살고 있다 보니까 여러 주제와 여러 사건과 여러 어떤 그런 감정들을 전 세계인들이 동시에 함께 느끼고 그것에 대해서 얘기할 수 있는 시대가 되어서 지금은 한국이다 세계인들이다라고 나누어서 생각할 시대가 아닌 것 같습니다.
So now with the development of social media, when you post one picture, it goes out to the entire world all at the same time. And so now, you can talk about different issues, different themes, different events, different emotions, and the global audience can all enjoy them all at the same time together. And so now I think we've arrived at a time where that distinction between the Korean audience and the global audience is becoming increasingly meaningless.
지금 SNS를 거론했듯이 그 이제 인터넷이라는 어떤 엄청난 그 서로를 소통시키는 어떤 게 생겼기 때문에 그러니까 그 라이프 스타일이라는 게 이제 공유가 되잖아요. 그러니까 어떻게 보면은 그걸 구분을 짓는다는 게 이제 무색해지는 시대가 되고 있는 거 아닌가라는 생각도 들고요.
Now we talked about this SNS, the social media, but now because of internet that is a mass communicator, I think we are all sharing the lifestyles, and the kind of distinction between Korean audience and the international audience is meaningless.
So I want us to be able to watch a couple more clips. This is from more recent work. One is from Steel Rain from 2017, which is a genre mashup of a buddy film plus political thriller, in which director Jung plays a rogue North Korean operative during a fictional coup attempt in North Korea. In this scene, Kwak Do-won plays South Korean counterpart as a kind of schlubby bureaucrat. So you'll see them in this clip connect here as dads with K-pop obsessed daughters. And then we're going to see a clip from Squid Game, which the clip will also feature an actor you might be familiar with, Kong Yoo. And this clip foreshadows the violence of the later survival games. So through Lee Jung-jae's performance here, we'll especially see and feel the tremendous gulf between the haves and the have-nots, and the desperation felt by South Korea's underclass. And so after we watch these clips, I want to come back to this point of the specificity of South Korea, or the difference between Korea and the rest of the world, and whether or not that is important to still pay attention to, or whether it's kind of blurring away with global audiences of this content. Okay, so both of these works have been very successful because in a way they connect popular entertainment culture, through games or gaming, familiar genres, character archetypes, and so on, to very deeply felt emotions that audiences around the world have found very relatable and moving. So, can you comment on what you were both feeling in the moments we just screened? And maybe after that, I'll follow up with a question about the specificity, I think, of this Korean situation, the Korean sentiment.
오징어 게임은 찍을 때도 굉장히 일반적이지 않은 시나리오였고, 그리고 또 감독님이 비주얼적으로도 굉장히 준비를 많이 하셔서 굉장히 세트장을 촬영장을 갈 때마다 오늘은 어떤 세트장에서 연기를 하게 될까 이런 약간의 그런 그 기다림마저 갖게 됐었던 오징어 작품이었던 것 같아요.
Well, the Squid Game, when I was filming Squid Game, it's not an ordinary screenplay. So visually, there was a lot of preparation. So every time I was going to the filming site, I was very anticipating for that moment.
그리고 동시에 오징어 게임은 OTT 플랫폼에서 이제 제작을 했잖아요. 근데 한국에서 OTT 플랫폼 작품을 제가 처음 했는데 그때까지만 해도 이게 무슨 타입의 컨텐츠라고 해야 되나? 영화도 아닌 것 같고, 그렇다고 TV 쇼도 또 아닌 것 같고, 이걸 어떻게 내가 생각을 하고 연기를 해야 될까? 이런 의문도 좀 있었습니다.
But at the same time, Squid Game was on a OTT platform. It was produced on the OTT platform. So this was the first experience for me. So I couldn't say what kind of content it was exactly, whether if it's not quite the cinema, but it's also not quite the TV show.
그런데 전 세계인들이 동시에 볼 수 있다라는 얘기를 듣고, 이게 요즘 이렇게 인터넷망이 이렇게 잘 되어 있으니까 그런 식으로 볼 수 있는가 보구나라고 생각을 했죠.
But I was told that the audience all around the world can actually watch this at the same time. So I thought it was the power of the internet.
그런데 제 주변에 있는 분들이 OTT 플랫폼이 어떻게 될지 앞으로 이제 막 나온 거기 때문에 어떻게 될지 모르니까 하지 말라고 하더라고요. 오징어 게임.
But a lot of people around me said you don't know the future of the OTT platform, so you shouldn't do it.
그래서 저는 그런데 황동혁 감독을 너무 좋아하는 팬이었거든요.
But I was a big fan of the director Hwang Dong-hyuk.
그래서 한 정말로 2, 3일은 고민을 했던 것 같아요.
So I think I was actually considering over a couple days.
그런데 대본이 워낙에 재미있었기 때문에 이제 하게 됐죠.
But it was such a fun screenplay, so I decided to be part of it.
그래서 지금 그 작품을 하지 말라고 했었던 사람들이랑은 연락을 최대한으로 안 하고 있습니다.
So the people who told me to be not involved with this project, I don't really keep in contact with them.
다행히 저는 안 말려서 지금 계속 보고 있어요.
Thankfully, nobody stopped him, so I'm watching it very well now.
그 오징어 게임 공유 씨랑 촬영하고 같이 밥 먹는다고 연락이 와서 저 밥 먹으러 갔거든요.
After he was filming it with Gong Yu, he invited me for dinner, so I went out to have meals with them.
근데 밥을 되게 기분 좋게 잘 먹었어요.
And we had a fun dinner.
그리고 오징어 게임 나왔는데 저 씬을 찍었더라고요.
And then when the Squid Game came out, I saw that scene.
그래서 둘이 뺨 때리면서 정이 붙었나? 기분 좋게 맞았나? 어떻게 그렇게 기분 좋게 저녁을 먹었지?
And I was like, how do you slap each other and became friends like that?
그 엄철우라는 캐릭터, 그러니까 사실은 뭐 헌트에서도 그렇고 한국에서는 이 분단 문제를 다루는 것에 있어서 진지함으로 빠지면은 어떻게 보면 이데올로기적인 어떤 평양성에 의해서 굉장히 위험한 어떤 소재이기도 하죠.
So in the character of Chol-woo in Still Rain, and that's the same with Hunt as well. In Korea, if you're filming about the unification, North Korea, then it can be too ideological if it's too serious, and then you can be seen as biased.
그리고 이제 그 종종 액션 영화의 어떤 액션을 하는 행위자로 이렇게 북한의 어떤 특수요원을 사용해서 그거를 상업적 액션 영화로 그냥 소비하고 말죠.
Too often, the North Korean spies are used as a character in an action film, just North Korean like special agent. So it's just consumed that way.
네, 강철비가 좋았던 거는 그러니까 그런 인물을 인간적인 그리고 남쪽에 살고 있는 어떤 또 다른 철우와 굉장히 닮아 있는 사람일 수도 있다라는 그런 인간적 접근이 좋았어요.
What I liked about this character and the movie Still Rain was that this North Korean character was humanized, so actually have a lot in common with similar characters in South Korea.
물론 강철비에서는 둘의 관계를 그렇게 진지하지 않게 약간의 웃음 코드를 넣어서 가볍게 보여줬지만
Of course, in Still Rain, the relationship between these North Korean and the South Korean is not considered serious. It's more humorous tone.
현실적인 어떤 지금 대한민국 한반도에서 살고 있는 우리는 그것을 직시하거나 그리고 진지하게 생각하는데 지쳤거나 용기가 없는 현실이 놓여 있기도 하거든요.
And in some ways, those of us who live in Korean Peninsula, this issue of North Korean and South Korean division is perhaps we don't have the courage to look at it seriously and approach it in a realistic way.
또 그런 의미에서 헌트는 어떻게 보면은 그 한반도에 살고 있는 어떤 두 인물을 또 다른 시각으로 바라봤던 작품이죠.
So in The Hunt, it's a fresh look at these two people who live in the Korean Peninsula in a different sides.
그러니까 훌륭한 감독입니다.
So that's why Director Lee is an accomplished, terrific director.
Thank Thank you. Well, so I think maybe this is a question that I want to kind of come back to or emphasize. So these films that we saw, the clips from, they are popular genre entertainment. They're very well made. But at the same time, they talk about some actual social issues and some aspects of history. So like in Squid Game, there's a reference to some actual labor rights issues or the struggles of minority groups and the cruelty of the class divide. And in Steel Rain, you have the ongoing tragedy of the division on the Korean Peninsula. So I think audiences around the world, they really respond well, actually, to what's specific about this Korean content. So how do you think about this balance of genre entertainment and real social issues or real historical issues in the work that you're making?
지금 이제 세계가 코로나 팬데믹으로 인해서 또 빈부격차가 굉장히 벌어지고 있기도 하고요.
So the gap between the rich and the poor are becoming even more widening during the COVID pandemic globally.
그리고 또 한국의 얘기로 한다면은 이제 남북 관계에 대해서는 그 어떤 누구도 진지하게 고민하기를 어려워하는 것 같고요.
And in Korea, when it comes to North and South Korean relation, nobody wants to think about it that seriously.
사람들이 삶의 여유가 있으면은 질문을 받기를 약간 질문에 대해서 진지한 시선을 두는데 약간 게을러지는 경향이 있는 것 같기도 하고요.
I think when people don't have much other space in their lives, they can't really ask the question in a serious manner. They become lazy.
근데 이제 전체가 어떤 커다란 문제에 직면했을 때는 다가오는 문제에 대해서 받아들이는 경향이 있는 것 같아요.
And when we face a big issue, I think we're just entering into an acceptance.
어떤 그런 사회적 어떤 분위기로 인해서 이런 작품들이 여러분들에게 다가갈 수 있었던 것 같고요.
I think because of this social context, these movies speak to the audience.
그 영화는 우리의 어떤 삶의 그 희노애락을 다루면서 가벼운 감정을 다룰 수도 있죠.
Cinema deals with human emotions, joy, anger, pleasure. It can deal with light emotions.
하지만 그 우리의 삶은 그렇게 가벼운 어떤 감정만의 교감으로 이루어진 게 아니라 좀 더 서로를 깊이 들여다보고 서로에 대한 아픔을 교감해야 또 삶이 서로가 이 공동체 사회를 건강하게 운영해 나갈 수도 있다라는 생각을 합니다.
But I think cinema also deals with deep emotions, those that can make us care for each other, to take care of each other's pain, and then we can come together as a healthy and fruitful community.
그 한국 영화의 특성 중에 하나가 여러 가지 오락적 장르에 대한 끊임없는 도전을 하기도 했지만 어떤 사회가 품고 있는 문제점을 외면하지 않으려는 노력도 끊임없이 했던 것 같아요.
So what's distinctive about Korean cinema is that it definitely has an entertainment dimension to it, but we never shy away from deep, serious social problems.
네, 그렇기 때문에 한국 영화인이라는 게 자랑스럽습니다.
That's why I'm very proud to be a Korean film industry.
아까도 이제 그 전세기가 이제는 더 가까워졌다라는 의미의 말씀을 잠깐 드렸었는데요.
Well, I mentioned that mentioned that the whole world is much closer now.
우리가 뭐 너무나도 이제 요즘 들어서 더 크게 느껴지는 것 같아요.
But I think we feel that more closely these days.
어느 나라에서 이 물류가 이제 원활하게 이제 이동이 안 될 때 다른 곳에서 벌써 그거에 대한 불편함을 느끼고 있고
When the material exporting and importing way, like if it's not working very well, then you can already feel from the other country the effect of it.
어느 나라 경제가 안 좋아지면은 경기가 안 좋아지면 다른 나라도 같이 동시에 안 좋아지고
And if one country has an economic problem, then it actually affects the others as well.
어느 나라에서 갑자기 기후가 안 좋아지면 또 다른 곳에서 또 동시에 다 같이 기후가 안 좋아지고
And if one country has an issue with the weather issues, then it actually affects the other countries as well.
그러니까 우리가 살고 있는 물류로 인해서 살고 있는 여러 가지 프로덕트들과 그 다음에 기후와 그리고 경제까지도 이게 다 하나로 묶여 있다라는 것이 요즘의 현실인 것 같습니다.
So I think this is the reality right now that we're so closely woven and connected in terms of these materials or the weather or even economically. I think we're very close together.
그런데 오징어 게임에서 얘기하고자 하는 것은 내가 조금이라도 더 갚기 위해서 남을 얼만큼 더 속일 수 있고 남을 얼만큼 더 괴롭힐 수 있는가에 대해서 이야기를 하고 있는데 그것을 전 세계인들이 한국말로 얘기하고 있는데도 다 공감을 하셨다라는 것은 이거는 굉장히 큰 사건인 것 같습니다.
I think it's such a big problem that the Squid Game is actually talking about how you're trying to step over others for your own benefit, and it was made in Korean, which was not in the global language. However, still the global audience can actually resonate to the global audience. I think that is actually a big issue.
그래서 영화나 그런 어떤 그런 그 TV 쇼 프로그램으로 메시지를 보다 많은 분들이 재밌게 보기 위해서 그 재밌게 볼 수 있는 여러 가지 장면들을 섞어서 이렇게 만든다라는 것은 지금 시대에는 굉장히 좀 중요한 일인 것 같아요. 그래서 저희 필름 메이커들이 훨씬 더 다각적으로 고민을 해서 더 재미있게 만들고 안에 메시지를 얼마나 많은 분들과 공감할 수 있는 메시지를 만들어 넣느냐는 이제부터 저희들이 더 업그레이드로 고민해야 되는 문제인 것 같습니다.
I think it's very important for these cinema and then TVs to have their message, but actually convey in a very entertaining way. So I think it's something that filmmakers has to consider and think about, and how we can actually communicate this message, but actually provide the entertainment to the global audience as well.
Great. Okay, so thank you so much. Yeah, that was really helpful and wonderful to hear. So we're going to move on to the last set of clips for today's event. I want to remind everyone that recording is not allowed, especially of this content. So please put away your phones for at least the next couple minutes. So we are going to be watching a clip from Hunt and the trailer for A Man of Reason. So we are squeezed for time. So I had several questions that I wanted to ask you about these works, which is really, one of the things that we're celebrating here are these premieres. But maybe I'll just ask one question about these films, which is, how does it feel to show your films in Toronto? What's most memorable about screening the films here?
같이 이제 각자가 연출한 영화를 이 토론토 TIFF의 같은 시기에 관객들에게 보여드릴 수 있다라는 게 이건 어떻게 보면 굉장히 기적 같은 일인 거죠. 예.
So we each directed a film, and now we're showing it together at the same time at TIFF, and it's like a miracle.
그 뭐 각자의 영화에 대한 의미가 우리에게는 크지만 또 이렇게 함께 관객분들과 또 이렇게 어떤 서로의 새로운 도전을 잘 마무리해서 이렇게 관객분들과 나눌 수 있는 이 시간을 선물 받았다는 건 정말 엄청난 영광이고 기쁨입니다.
So this film has, for each of us, has a special meaning, but it is amazing to have our new pursuits and share with them, with the audience. It is a big gift to us, and it's a deep honor for us.
TIFF는 정말 대단한 것 같습니다.
TIFF is amazing.
한국에서 배우가 연출하는 일이 흔한 일이냐, 흔히 있는 일이냐라는 그 질문을 며칠 전에 받았었거든요. 근데 한국에서도 사실 이렇게 배우가 연출을 한다라는 게 이게 쉽지, 그러니까 드문 일이죠. 많이 드문 일입니다.
I actually got a question a couple of days ago that if the actor becoming a director is that a common thing in Korea, and it's actually not very common in Korea.
그런데 같은 해 우성 씨가 연출한 영화와 제가 연출한 영화가 이 토론토 영화제에서 상영을 갖게 된 것은 정말 우성 씨가 얘기한 대로 기적과도 같은 일이라고 생각합니다.
I think just like Jung said here, I think for us to be able to premiere both of our films at the Toronto Film Festival together in the same year, I think it is miraculous.
토론토 영화제 측에 너무나도 감사드리고요.
We thank you from the bottom of our heart to TIFF.
한국 영화의 발전을 계속해서 눈여겨 봐 주셨다라는 뜻일 것 같고요.
I guess that's the evidence that you've been watching the development of Korean cinema.
그리고 우성 씨와 저가 해온 어떤 그런 작업들을 또 역시 관찰해 주셔서 너무나도 감사드립니다.
And we thank you so much for you've been paying attention to the work that Usong and I have been working on.
우성 씨가 연출한 The Man of Reason은 이제 또 개봉을 미국에서도 이제 준비를 하고 있고요.
I think he's preparing to premiere his film A Man of Reason in North America. Sorry.
그런 계획이 있었군요. 헌트는 이제 12월 초에 미국 지역에서 개봉을 앞두고 있습니다. 그래서
Hunt will be screening in December in North America.
그래서 저희 입장에서는 지금 미주 지역에서 처음 프로모션을 시작하는 거나 마찬가지여서 굉장히 기쁘고 떨리고 있습니다.
So I'm very happy, but also a little bit nervous at the same time, because this is the first promotion in the North American area.
그래서 여러분들의 많은 응원 부탁드리고요. 다시 한번 토론토 영화제에 감사드립니다.
So I ask you for your support and thank you so much for inviting us to TIFF.
So we do have some time to take questions from the audience, and we have actually collected some from Twitter. So I'm going to start there. So Ken asks, since both of you are making your feature directorial debuts, was there anything that you exchanged or learned from each other to help overcome the challenges of directing your first feature film?
영양제를 나눴습니다.
We share vitamin supplements with each other.
이게 체력적으로 이게 한 배우로서만 현장에 있을 때보다 체력적으로 한 3배 정도는 더 힘든 것 같더라고요. 왜냐면 이제 모든 결정을 하고 촬영을 하고 또 연기도 하고 이러다 보니까 체력적으로 이게 체력이 떨어지는 게 진짜로 느껴지고 나중에 살이 빠지다 이렇게 보면 종이 인형 같이 얇아지는 듯한.
Well, it is. Well, it's physically very challenging. When I compare to acting on set, it's probably 3 times harder. I have to make all the decisions. I have to act, and so I was losing weight. It was so hard. I became so skinny.
그래서 이제 제가 그 보호자를 먼저 촬영을 끝내놓고 이제 헌트 감독을 하신다고 하길래 처음에는 이제 말려야 되나.
So when I first shoot Man of Reason as a director, and he was saying, "I'm gonna direct right now," so I was like, "Should I stop him?"
말릴 수는 없었고 그래서 저기 한국에서 그 산삼이라고 있는데 삼삼 액 이렇게 캡슐로 나온 게 있어서 그거 먹고 기운내라고 그거 나눴습니다.
So I couldn't quite say no. So instead, in Korea, we have something called like wild ginseng. So I had the capsule of wild ginseng and gifted him.
서로 이제 현장 얘기를 많이 하고요. 그리고 또 우성 씨가 먼저 보호자를 먼저 연출했기 때문에 또 후반 작업할 때라든가 또 혹은 이제 그 프리프로덕션 단계에서 일했었던 어떤 그런 이야기들을 먼저 들으면서 와 나는 하지 말아야 되겠구나라고 생각했었습니다.
We do share a lot of stories about the filming site, and because Jung did Man of Reason before me, I've heard some experience about the post-production process, and maybe I thought maybe I shouldn't do this.
그런데 뭐 제가 시나리오를 완성을 하고 나니까 이제 연출을 해야 되겠구나라는 마음을 이제 다시 정하게 되면서 이제 연출을 했는데 몇 번은 이걸 왜 했지라는 생각도 많이 했지만은 지금 이렇게 여러분들과 여기 토론토에서 저희 영화를 가지고 이야기를 하는 이 순간을 이렇게 느끼다 보니까 만들기 잘했구나라는 생각을 합니다.
When I finished the script, I actually, and then after I decided to direct the film, I was wondering why did I choose to do this? But now that I'm actually in Toronto and I'm able to talk about my movie with you guys here, I think I made a good choice.
산삼덕이에요, 산삼덕.
It's all thanks to the ginseng capsule I shared.
Great. So another question from Twitter. So is there a movie character or particular scene in each other's filmography that you wished you played?
조호정 씨가 하신 배역 중에서 본인이 하셨으면 좋겠다고 생각하신 것 같아요.
총알이 2개지요.
That's a dialogue from The Face Reader.
예, 암살이라는 영화에서
It's from Assassination.
Assassination.
거기에서 그 역할을 되게 매력 있게 잘 해내셔서
He was very attractive in that movie.
저는 우송 씨가 굉장히 그 히트 친 영화 중에 하나인데 저는 비트라는 영화가 있는데 그걸 너무 재밌게 봤어서 그때 정말 충격적이었어요. 한국 영화에서 어떻게 이런 영화가 있을 수 있을까? 그게 아마 진짜 놈놈놈보다도 더 충격적인 영화였었는데 저 개인적한테도 그때 대한민국에 있는 모든 분들이 다 재밌게 보신 영화인데 저는 만약에 우성 씨가 했었던 영화 중에서 뭔가 하나 해볼 수 있다면은 비트를 저는 한번 해보고 싶어요.
I think I will probably choose the movie Beat that Jung played in. That was such a shocking and phenomenal at the time, and even more than the good and the bad and the weird at the time. I think everyone in Korea had enjoyed that film. So if I have to choose one film that I would like to play, that it will be the movie Beat.
그러면 손 벌리고 이렇게 하면 되지.
Yeah, so you can just spread your arm.
나는 총알이 2개지요. 이것만 하면 되고.
are a couple more, but yeah, are we taking questions from the floor? Yeah? Yes, okay. So in the front here, yes. Do you like to ask your question? Yeah. And please speak up. Okay, she wrote a bit of a script. Yeah.
안녕하세요. 저는 또 배우님과 홈트랑 보호자를 보고 싶어서 한국에서 날라온
I actually flew from Korea to watch your movie Hunt and A Man of Reason.
홈트에 오기 전까지 홈트를 N년차 할 정도로 정말 팬이었는데요.
I was a huge fan and I watched Hunt in Korea many different times.
어제 저녁에 프리미어 상영을 보면서 한국에서와는 봤을 때와 또 다르게 새로운 경험을 했습니다.
It was such a different experience watching yesterday the premiere here compared to the time that I watched in Korea.
이제 저의 질문은 토론토 영화제 출품할 이제 새롭게 재편집하셨다고 기사를 읽은 적이 있는데
I think I read an article about that you actually revised the film that's different than that's premiered in Korea.
혹시 한국 상영 버전과는 또 어떤 차이점을 두고 편집을 하셨는지 궁금해서 질문드립니다.
So what are some of the differences, the one that's premiered in Korea and here?
칸느 상영본과 한국에서 개봉한 상영본은 좀 다르게 편집을 다시 했습니다.
I revised the one that I actually showed at Cannes Festival and the ones that premiered in Korea.
그리고 토론토 영화제 용으로는 편집을 다시 하지는 않았고요. 이 서브타이틀을 굉장히 훨씬 더 신경 써서 많이 수정을 했습니다.
So I didn't actually revise the film for the Toronto Film Festival, but I did pay more attention and revising the subtitle.
Another question. Yes, here.
What did you enjoy the most about working with each other?
그래서 같이 하실 때 가장 좋았던
What did you enjoy the most about working with each other is the question.
일 끝나고 술 마실 때
We drink together after working together.
Great. I'm gonna ask one more of the Twitter questions and then go back to the audience. We have a little bit of time. I know we started late, so we can go a bit past. So I will call the time. But so, who are your influences? This is from Nia Ray of Sunshine on Twitter. Who are your influences as directors? And which Korean directors or foreign directors would you say influenced your film the most?
너무 많은 분들한테 영감을 받죠. 훌륭한 영화를 만드시는 분들이 워낙에 많이 계시고, 그리고 또 촬영 감독님도 많이 계시고, 미술 감독, 음악 감독님, 워낙에 많은 그 훌륭한 필름메이커 분들이 많이 있으시기 때문에 다 모든 분들이 다 소중한 것 같아요.
I think I get inspiration from so many different people, like the DPs or the artistic director or the music director. Including them, there's just so many directors and films that inspired my film.
그래서 정말 와, 어떻게 저런 아이디어를 냈을까, 또 혹은 어떻게 저 아이디어를 저렇게 구현을 했을까, 이런 생각을 많이 하면서 놀래는 작품들이 많이 있죠.
So there's a lot of work that I watch and I would think about where did the ideas come from or how did they dramatize it so well.
그래서 저도 사실은 나만의 것을 어떻게 하면 찾고 그것을 나만의 것을 어떻게 만들까를 더 고민하게 되는 것 같아요.
So I think that made me think more about how to make my own distinctive film.
그렇죠. 사실은 현장의 모든 분들에게 영감을 받고 또 세상에 수없이 많은 모든 영화를 보면서도 영향을 받기도 하고, 그런데 사실은
influenced by everyone on the set and by so many films in the world.
가장 큰 영감은 우리의 삶인 것 같아요.
But I think the most important inspiration comes from our own lives.
지금 여러분을 볼 때 여러분 모두에게 영감을 받고 있습니다.
When I see you here right now, I'm inspired by all of you.
Okay, so we have time for one last question. Oh, there's a mic. Okay, so in the corner over there. Yes. Oh, okay. That's okay too.
I watched Hunt.
두 분한테 다 받아야 되는 거 아니에요?
Yes. Okay. So why don't we hear both questions? So here and here. Yes.
You first.
이런 데서 영감을 받는 것 같아요.
I think this is where we are inspired. I think I wanted to briefly share how I felt about the film, and I have a questions for director Jung here. I think he played a soldier that was in the military for almost 13 years, and he had his own ideology, but his house was so good, so I was surprised to see that. I think the question is when Jung was reading the script, I wanted to know if he actually knew about who the Dongrim, who the spy was, and
Yeah. How that felt. So this is obviously for the Phil Hunt. Yes.
대답.
We will hear one more question and then we can yes. So,
그 대답을 해드릴게요.
Yes, over
그
here.
대님 대답을 먼저 해드릴게요.
Okay.
그 시나리오를 읽을 때 독님이 궁금해서 독님이 밝혀지는 부분을 먼저 펴봤어요.
While I was reading the script for the first time, I really wanted to know who Dongrim the spy was. So I flipped to the page where I find out.
그건 아니고요.
That's actually not true.
네, 그 워낙 이제 옆에서 시나리오를 오랫동안 그 수정하고 고민하는 모습을 지켜봤던 사람이었기 때문에 진작에 이제 그 시나리오에 대한 정보는 다 알고 있었죠.
Because I watched him write and revise the script for many months, I already knew the content of the scenario.
네.
Okay, so last question, and you've been waiting, so please go ahead. Yes.
형호는 진짜 국민의 희생이 싫어서 그거를 막았던 건지 아니면 정도의 대사처럼 진짜 그 자기가 살고 싶어서 그랬던 건지 어떤 노선으로 연기하셨는지 궁금합니다.
So basically, she wants to know if Pyong-ho character, his intention was actually for his own good, or was he actually worried about the citizens?
평호는 북에서 온 사람이기 때문에 북이 어떤 행동을 할지 잘 알고 있죠. 그래서 혹시라도 일어날 수 있는 참사를 막으려고 작전을 틀은 거죠.
Well, he came from the north, so he already know the big picture and the plan, so he was trying to stop the disaster.
그런데 마지막에 자기 또한 그런 자기의 희생을 통해서까지도 큰 재앙을 막으려고 했는데 그런 마음은 정도의 마음과 평화를 이루고자 한 정도의 마음과 같다라고 이제 생각을 하고 있었죠.
He was trying to stop the disaster by even sacrificing himself, and I thought that mind sort of aligned with Chengdo's mind, and it was the same that they both wanted the peace.
그런데 정도가 죽어가면서 도대체 왜 그랬냐, 살고 싶었냐라는 그 얘기를 들었을 때는 평호는 이 남자는 제 마음을 알 거라고 생각했는데 고작 내가 살고 싶었다라고 나를 이해했단 건가라는 어떤 그런 씁쓸함을 느끼는 그런 감정이었습니다.
I think there's some kind of bitterness and mixed feelings because when Chengdo was dying, that he asked him, "Did you want to live?" And that's the question that Pyonghoo thought that he would actually understand him in a deeper level, but that by listening to that question, he was a little disappointed and felt bitter that he may not have known the full picture.
어떤 부분은 평생 서로를 이해 못해요.
In some ways, we can never understand each other.
어떤 부부.
Some couples.
Well, thank you so much to our Hwang Jung-dong for a wonderful session. Thank